Content warning. This podcast contains bones, blood, smut, and swear words.
Before we get into the good shit this week, we wanted to remind you that we've launched a Patreon. For just $1 or $2 an episode, you get extended games, brand new content, access to our notes and motorboards, and much more. So, if you would like to be a part of sponsoring Hannah's ever-growing collection of bone earrings, you can head to patreon.com/frontline5th or follow the link in the show notes. Okay, now back to that sweet, sweet Bone Zone action.
Act 1. Welcome, penitents. Hello and welcome to the Frontline 5th, a Locked Tomb podcast where little 9-year-old lictors explore the Locked Tomb series for the first time while a couple of dried-out bone witches cackle over how little they really know. We're currently reading Harrow the Ninth by Tamsin Muir, and this week we are recording from a closet we squeezed in there to try and hide from the Saint of Duty, to bring you our takes on chapters 19 through 22. I'm Marie, and although I am used to this close quarters situation, I think my co-host Hannah is missing her quaint dining room table situation.
Actually, I'm pretty naturally a cave person, Marie, although I like quaint.
Okay, sure. Hannah, I know that we're currently hiding from live lictors, but it's pretty clear that that's not the only danger this week. So what is your plan to escape the zombie lictors when they come?
Here's the thing. I've always basically assumed that my role in the zombie apocalypse would be the person who runs slowest so everyone else can get away. But no, that's it. That's my answer.
That's really kind.
It's not intentional. I just refuse to do cardio.
Yeah, me too. Along with us this week is also our youngest siblings, Brooke and John. So, what are your guys' plan for when Kithorea's dead body comes knocking?
Oh my god, zombies absolutely terrify me. Like, more than anything else out there, except maybe those, like, horrifying house centipedes, aka death insects, 1,000 bone-chillingly articulated legs.
So you're saying zombies are at that level for you?
Yeah, at least. John?
This is a unique zombie situation because there's only one zombie. And if there's only one zombie, apparently all you have to do is close the door and it can't get through. So, like, you're completely fine. This is a non-issue. You just close the door and you figure it out
John
later.
John literally goes and plays video games.
Yeah.
Yeah, this seems fine.
Unbothered.
I'm assuming it can't turn God into a zombie, in which case we have bigger problems. And then, like, the only other people in the entire species are all lictors. Like, they're all necromancers. Like, this shouldn't, like, one zombie shouldn't be an issue.
You're unbothered. Are you also moisturized and well-hydrated? And staying in your lane?
Generally, yes.
Okay, sorry. I spent too much time on TikTok.
Sounds very Gen Z.
Wait, hold on. Marie, what are you doing with the zombies, out of curiosity?
What am I doing with the zombies?
Yeah, or zombie.
I'm hiding. I'm in my closet. I've been in my closet. I haven't left my closet. The zombie hasn't found me.
Asked and answered.
Okay, yeah, so before we get too far into the murder attempts, and post-murder ambulations, what are the key insights that you have gleaned from these chapters, if any?
Okay, so we started touching on this last week. This is the 8th episode for Harrow, and this is the 8th time that we've gotten a different story from Canaan House. And we don't know what to call this sort of alternate version, meanwhile at Canaan House situation, but why is it relevant to the story? Like, even if we do want to say that this is, the version that Harrow is left with after excising Gideon from her brain, why do we care? How come we get one every... How come there have been 8 of these chapters? Why is this relevant?
Are you not enjoying the alternate history, Brooke?
I don't know what to call it. I don't know what to do with it at all.
This is what I've been waiting for. I have been so irritated for the past several weeks as you guys have just, like, brushed it off like it's a casual thing happening in the background. Like, a third of this book makes no fucking sense.
Thank you. Okay, so... I mean, for a while we were waiting for it to go somewhere, do something. We were giving it a chance. I don't know, but okay, I'm speaking for John. Sorry, John. I was giving it a chance to, like, make sense, to connect somehow. I don't get it. I gave it a chance. It's now frustrating.
It hasn't crossed over to frustrating yet for me, because I imagine it's going to be very similar to the end of Gideon, where we just, like, get to the end and it's like, oh, god damn it.
Oh, you trust Tamsin, do you?
Now. But yeah, we'll see. My answer for this
too many
is
times.
that
He's getting complacent.
Probably. No, my only answer for this is that I also, as I texted you guys, want a collapsing bone spear now. Like, that just sounds dope. Like, you can concealed carry a giant bone spear.
Like collapsing boner. I mean, doesn't that kind of like standard equipment?
Wow, I did not understand your message, Marie. Okay.
Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah, we need HR.
I mean, that's just... Anyway.
It is actually a pretty dope weapon, so I feel you. I genuinely, foolishly did not believe when I started these books that zombies were like going to come into play, which is fucking idiotic. It's a book about necromancy, but somehow like the first book managed to convince me that we were on skeletal constructs, which are basically like external puppets you can control, or bringing people back from the dead,
Right,
or sucking energy.
zombies are almost explicit. They're non-overlapping with necromancy in my head. They are mutually exclusive with raised bodies at the command of someone. Right? Zombies are mutually exclusive in that they have no controller.
They're autonomous. Yeah, that's a good point. So maybe this is reasonable, but I just like this description of Kytheria as like full on zombie, like inching her way towards the is so it's almost a meme in itself.
It was horrifying. I was
truly,
just like ready to slam the book shut.
Like, no.
Marie?
My favorite thing about these chapters is how fucking pissed Ortis is. Professor Lois is also super into poetry.
It's hilarious. She's like, that's my thing. God damn it. Like,
I'm the big guy who likes poetry.
It's the most emotion you've seen out of him. It's just pure hatred for Protesilaus. Okay, well, so it's time for the meme watch. How many of these did you guys catch?
I got the Superman S. That was hilarious.
yes. Wait,
I got two.
You thought it was the Superman S? For us, that was always the Spring S. No?
Spring?
I don't know why. It was just like, yeah, like I always associate that S with spring. I don't know why.
This is so funny. I literally just call it in my head the 90s S. Like there's no word for it. It just is. And
No,
so, I mean,
Superman?
maybe the youths on our podcast don't know about this.
I don't know
but,
where I
like,
get the Superman S, to be fair, I
a
guess.
huge portion of my childhood was spent writing
Doodling
in like
these?
the margins of my textbooks, doodling this S.
Yes!
I remember the day when I figured out, like when somebody taught me the S, and I was like, that's how you do it?
Like, that's so fucking cool. Yeah.
Write a
Yeah,
passage
and
as a child.
it's a wonderful description of like how you do it, you know.
Yes.
two sets of three parallel lines connected by diagonals with two triangles on top.
I knew exactly what she was talking about. I was like, wow.
And then the Annabel Lee reference is quite explicit.
Yeah.
Right?
If you know
as
what
he's
to look
quoting
for
this
it.
poem. But you also know that he says quite explicitly that he's quoting a poem and that poems like cast shadows over civilization, which is also interesting. I did not know that the 3 strands thing was from the Bible.
Wait, I'm sorry. We didn't really talk about Annabel Lee being a poem.
Oh, sorry. It's a poem by Edgar Allan Poe about a girl who dies.
I copy and pasted it into the appropriate spot in the bottom so we can actually talk about the actual poem when it comes up if we'd like.
Perfect.
Okay, so then the last reference is from the Bible, and it's when Dulcie in Meanwhile at Canaan House watches the 2 bodies of Cam and Pal go by and says, oh, like Calamity is my first strand, Camilla my second. 1 cord was overpowered, 2 cords could defend themselves, but 3 were not broken by the living or the dead. And that's from the Bible. So, well, with that, dear listeners, sit back and try not to get murdered as we present Harrow the Ninth, Episode 8. Oh, then he just wants you dead. Act 2, a prey animal.
This section of Frontline Fifth is safe for anyone who has read through Chapter 22 in Harrow the Ninth.
Let's recap. Chapter 19, Second House Skull, 10 months before the Emperor's murder. The Saint of Duty tries to murder you. Mercymorn is irked at his timing.
Chapter 20, Ninth House Skull, 6 months before the Emperor's murder. Yet more murder attempts, the origins of your house, Anastasia and Annabel Lee.
Chapter 22, 7th House Skull, 6 months BTEM, Kytheria walks.
Alrighty. The first time that the Saint of Duty tries to murder Harrow is 10 months before the Emperor's murder, just a short while after her arrival on the Mithraeum. he murders her or attacks her while she's scrounging dinner. So she's spooning up stew and bam, sword through the chest. These things happen.
Is it still called deja vu when you've deja vu'd a scene from the future? Very first prologue, or sorry, Parados. She's got a sword through her back protruding out of her chest.
It's like foreshadowing, except it's like back shadow, normal shadowing.
Can we coin it deja vu for future?
No, it's French.
It's a pretty intense, like, murder. I almost hesitate to call them murder attempts because it's almost always, it would be sufficient if she were not a fucking lictor.
Yeah, because Harrow she's infinitely adept at using her own bones as weapons and tools, so she grabs the sword with her own ribs, lengthens her phalanges like she's Wolverine's brother, and scratches the shit out of Ortis the First. She, like, springs the sword back out using her own ribs.
It's so fucking cool.
And then she turns a tip of her own bone into skeletal constructs to attack and one of the ribs into a protective cage of skeletal limbs that buoys her up, and she tries to get away, but the Saint of Duty throws his offhand, a spear, and skewers Harrow through the large intestine. I think she describes it as like a popped balloon or something, like just disgusting.
I love her ability to make sounds because the sproing, like there were a couple of those where you're like, I can hear it right now. And John is right. The like unfolding spear is so fucking nuts, and it's so fucking nuts as an offhand. Like that is a main weapon. That's
part of me just sees it as like a tripod, a telescoping tripod with a couple stakes, and like I genuinely do read it as if it is a marshmallow toasting spear, the kind that you could collapse.
That's very different energy.
Yes, I cannot take it seriously. I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, poor Harrow has to take it seriously because she would have died right there and then, but she lands at the feet of Mercy Morn, Saint of Joy. And Mercy heals Harrow immediately, clinically.
And kind of nicely, actually. She gave her some pain medication, some opiates.
Yeah, a flood of
true.
Natural opiates and oxytocin.
Yeah.
Harrow's essentially high as a kite.
Yeah.
Through the rest of this interaction.
She didn't have to do that.
You're not wrong.
I guess she doesn't have to do that, but I think she's just like, this is the easiest way to heal and also like get her to shut up for a minute while I deal with this. Yeah, but she does this because she knows she'll get in trouble with Jod if she doesn't, and she tells the Saint of Duty, it's not fair of you to try to bump them off when we'd get in trouble for it. And she knows why he's doing this, and she understands, but she wishes he would do it by A, dropping Harrow out of an airlock, and B, do it while Mercy is sleeping so she wouldn't be culpable.
Then she makes some very, there's a very strange aside here. John loves the asides. She says, Ortis says he likes to do things face to face, and Mercy's like, isn't that what got you in trouble 19 years ago, doing things face to face?
Yeah, she tells Ortis the First to clean up this mess. Yuck! There's bone in the grouting. And he does not.
I think this is so funny, this like dichotomy between this intense, insane magic going on. Like Harrow throws up all these skeletons at once. She's in a nest of limbs that is like carrying her away. She's using her own ribs, and also incredibly violent. He stabs her through the heart. He stabs her through the like large intestine. And then this like utterly domestic moment where Mercy clinically like taps her up, has a little bit of an argument, and is like, clean up here, and walks away. And that's the fucking end of a murder attempt. It's so bizarre.
She's like, the head maid.
And part of the reason that the Saint of Duty ignores her is he says with his luminous green eyes, he's like, I want her sword.
Give me the sword.
And that's really the only thing that brings Harrow out of her haze. And she's like, no, not my sword. You know, I'm like starting to have a fit.
It's mine.
It's mine. And Mercy just is like, basically like, everybody like, what the fuck is going on? Clean up, go away. And Ortis leaves without cleaning up. And Mercy asks Harrow what she did to Ortis the First to make him want to kill her. And when Harrow explains she did literally jack shit, she was trying to eat some soup, Mercy says, oh, then he just wants you dead.
Good luck.
And Harrow goes, but why does Ortis the First want me dead? And Mercy goes, who?
Oh my god.
I think we've basically got confirmation that he's Gideon, right? Like, I think
Way to just knock through that fourth wall.
Who? Then over the next 4 months, the Saint of Duty tries to kill Harrow at least 14 times. And she's often saved by the intervention from her shipmates, once even from Jod, who says, Ortis, have pity, and tells the Saint of Duty that she's your responsibility, not your punching bag.
That's an understatement.
Right. When Harrow goes to ask Jod to intervene more permanently, he explains that the Saint of Duty is dutiful to a higher authority, one that not even Jod has power to gainsay. And Ortis the First is committed to protecting Jod, and Harrow is a threat to Jod's safety.
Oh, right. What do we think this is? Is this like is Harrow a threat in a, like, she's a bad lictor and is therefore a...
Liability.
Thank you. Or a liability to Jod? Or is it like there's this Gideon mystery and Harrow is related to it, like, sort of threat?
I think it's probably somewhere more towards the second one. I think because Harrow's still, like, at least semi-competent. Half a lictor seems to be better than no lictor, right?
Not per the book.
It doesn't seem like it because, like, you know, she brings herself out after killing and requires, like, I guess she can heal herself to some extent, but she does require some sort of babysitting.
I mean, they talk about this in the beginning where it's like basically Harrow says, what would happen if I didn't bring my soul along with my body in the river, right? When they go through the river the first time. And Mercy's like, oh, it wouldn't kill you, but I would, because you don't want a lictor's body empty, right? And we know that although Harrow has access to, like, power, she only has access to the lictoral power consciously, and that she can't go into the river and have her cavalier take up her body and defend her body. I always read this as she's a threat because she's empty.
But it's interesting either way. And I think it's short-sighted of Ortis, Saint of Duty, to be trying to kill her rather than, like, fix her in some way. I don't know. The situation is weird. I also think it's pretty fucked up that, like, there's a great line in here where Harrow's, like, thinking to herself, hey, so one of your hands and fingers, one of your gestures is trying to kill me on the reg. Is this, like, fine with you, God? And the answer is kind of yes. I love that Jod is like, it's a higher power. And I'm like, what fucking higher power, bud? You're literally God. Like, you are the emperor of the 9 houses. You are the undying lord.
The Necro Lord Prime.
You could intervene. You absolutely could intervene.
A darker gray.
In response to this, of being like, no, well, I really can't do anything about it, he asks Harrow to carry a rapier. And she's like, what the fuck would be the point?
Right? What is the point?
The lictoral process.
And what's the point of carrying around a rapier? She's already got her two-hander.
To be fair, she can barely hold that up without extra skeletal help, so at least she can hold a rapier.
What is she going to do with the rapier?
I guess with the hope that her cavalier comes in somehow at some point.
I don't know. I think it's for the aesthetic. You got to just swish and flick.
Right.
Done now. Okay.
And then Ortis the First floats into the air.
It's exactly.
But Jod explains to her that only one person ever really fucked it up, and that was Anastasia, the founder of the Ninth House.
Okay, so I wanted to drop something in here because I know, John, you're the one who, like, Googled all of the names, right?
Yep.
My memory is that Anastasia had some cool and deep name, but I don't know if we ever talked about the fact that this book is fairly millennial coded, and I would argue that every single millennial, when they hear Anastasia... their first assumption is the Romanov princess, right? Mm-hmm. And I just, like, actually think that's something weird and interesting to keep in mind, that it also seems to be a reference to this, like, hidden person who, like, was secretly a huge deal, but actually, you know, was, like, hidden as a normal person and then comes out of nowhere when everyone thought she was dead. I don't know. Obviously, I'm telling you this because it's not a spoiler. It's just a thing I was thinking about, like, whether this will play out at some point.
Harrow's actually really almost upset to be like, everything in the 9th house is Anastasia. What do you mean she was actually a real person? Like, I know, like, theoretically she was a real person, but what the fuck you mean she was a real person?
Yeah. It's very different, I feel like, when you're like, this is just some ancient name that's like, it's a relic unto itself as a word, compared to like, nope, this is actually a person who, A, you're living in their rooms, and B, they are the only person who ever fucked up the electoral process. Congratulations, you're her descendant.
Right. After saying that she fundamentally got it wrong, after what happened, Jod gave Anastasia a different duty to guard the tomb of a monster. And Jod recites, "For the moon never beams without bringing me dreams of the beautiful Annabel Lee."
I gotta say, I'm not a big poetry person as a general rule. Requires more work than I care for the outcomes. Just my personal feeling. But this poem was kind of chilling, which I think is Edgar Allan Poe's specialty.
Right. I mean, it starts out many and many a year ago in a kingdom by the sea that a maiden there lived whom you may know by the name of Annabel Lee. And it's basically saying, like, we were both children. We had this beautiful love that was more than love. And the angels were so jealous of our love that they coveted her and me. And this was the reason that long ago in this kingdom by the sea, a wind blew out of a cloud, chilling my beautiful Annabel Lee, so that her highborn kinsman came and bore her away from me to shut her up in a sepulchre in this kingdom by the sea.
And then at the end, we had this childhood love. It was absolutely beautiful. People were jealous of it, so they took her away. They killed her. But neither the angels in heaven above nor the demons down under the sea can ever dissever my soul from the soul of the beautiful Annabel Lee. So it also has this, like, love conquers all bounds, regardless.
And a discussion of severing souls, which, severing combined souls, which is particularly appropriate to lictors.
Right. And then what he's quoting is the last verse. "For the moon never beams without bringing me dreams of the beautiful Annabel Lee, and the stars never rise, but I feel the bright eyes of the beautiful Annabel Lee. And so all the night tide I lie down by the side of my darling, my life and my bride, in her sepulchre there by the sea, in her tomb by the sounding sea."
Water.
Salt
I don't want to
water.
read too much into this.
Yeah. What a fucking bonkers, like, answer to the question of who did you bury? He's like, a monster, and then quotes a poem about love.
A dead love.
Hardly an answer. And there's only more questions to come, because the night after Harrow kills her 13th planet, she dines with the body in her dreams. The body says, "Wake up!" And when Harrow does wake, she finds that out in the corridor, Kitharea's broken dead body is walking, shuffling, coming towards her. And Harrow throws herself back into her rooms. She puts a blood ward on the door and a chair under the doorknob, and the body still comes and rattles the handle.
Yeah,
and
the blood ward
drags
does
its
nothing.
Nails down the steel. And after she feels like it's gone, she goes to Ianthe and tells Ianthe, like, Kitharea is walking. And Ianthe just looks at her and says, "Tell her I want my arm back."
I saw that, like, moment of, like, she tripped over a golden arm and, like, what the fuck?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. The Mithraeum is like an obstacle course of just, like, interesting, gaudy corpses that, like, stick out from the walls and you can trip over them and knock them over. I fucking love this.
I want my arm back.
Yeah, Kithareya cut off Ianthe's arm.
Oh, that's what you... Oh, okay. I thought she was talking about the golden bone arm that she tripped over in the hallway, because that's what we see that she has later on.
It might be a two-fart, but...
Maybe.
My personal favorite thing is, like, it's hilarious that we're doing, like, the silly horror movie trope of trying to wedge a chair under the door. Like, after we just put, like, an all-powerful necromancer blood ward on the door, it's like, we just, like, put, like, a nuclear weapon deterrent on the door, and then, like, all right, let's also, like, shove a chair
under that door
like
handle.
the most mundane thing you could do.
But it's the analog one that works.
Yeah.
Yep.
Meanwhile, back at Canaan House, Act 3. I guess I might as well die.
Let's recap. Chapter 21. Broken 6th house skull. Execution of the 6th. Endless rain. Him I'll kill quick.
It starts out, the rain starts falling on Canaan House, and it never stops again. And Teacher isn't thrilled about the rain, but they've got bigger fish to fry because the first house is not just wet, it is also murdery.
Before we get into the murderiness, I fucking love Teacher. I absolutely love Teacher. I just relate to him so much. I love this thing of like skipping about being like, I guess I might as well die.
Kind of hopefully.
He's like, I fucking hate it here.
It's a little insensitive.
And I love it. This also is consistent with like one of the last times we see Teacher in Gideon the Ninth, he's talking about how much he hates the water. And she's like, there's water everywhere. And he's like, it's a bit of a pisser, isn't it? And that's what I think of here. He's like, it's fucking raining. I might as well die.
Yikes. Foreboding.
The much more murdery part comes in with Palamity Sextus and Camilla Hecht have been executed by point-blank gunshots to the face. And in fact, they really can't be identified which body is which, except by flesh magic. And this is the first time we really see Dulcinea Septimus and her bronzed and vigorous cavalier Protesilaus Ebdima. So Dulcinea is incredibly frail. She's in a wheelchair with a thin tube coming out of her nose. Harrow kind of looks at it and she goes, it's wonderful, isn't it? It's a pulmonary drain. And Palamides designed it for her when he was just 15 years old.
Medical necromancy.
Right? Medical necromancy.
Mm-hmm.
And Dulcie does her necromantic work and confirms that the bodies are Cam and Pal. What do you think about this version of Dulcie?
It's weird to see her through Harrow's eyes because, like, she's not portrayed as likable.
What do you mean by that?
She's not cute and sexy and frail. She's like, oh, this
She's
is like a
not
dying person.
playful,
And
right?
she's not.
She's not sassy and playful. And she also is a lot more frail. Like almost to the point where you're like, oh, you're just dying. Like that's your main thing.
She seems decrepit and insipid.
Well, it is, to be fair, the first time we're actually meeting her, right? Like we
met her in a letter.
Well, yeah, but like we met Kithorea in like being her, so she's different. But like now I'm curious, like if we get to know her more in like the next, like, you know, meanwhile at Canaan House, is like how much of it was Kithorea versus her. Like I think we're gonna get that fleshed out a little bit, which will be fun.
There's a brief debate about whether it was the sleeper that killed him. Yes, it was.
I love this. Magnus is like, we should hope it was the sleeper that killed them because otherwise there's two maniacs with guns.
Exactly.
Yes.
And then they have a more intense conversation about what to do against a supernatural enemy with great power. And this is where Protesilaus starts quoting poetry and Ortis, medium strength, loses his shit. And the way that Ortis loses his shit, which is to glare. And think about quoting poetry back. So he's just really
Spoken word competition.
Yeah, it just really gets to Ortis because here's a muscle-bound, incredibly brave hero who also writes poems. And it's everything that Ortis wishes he was.
Yep.
What is clear is that they're all in this together. So Magnus is sent off to recruit Lieutenant Dias, and Dulcie is sent to try and get Silas Octokizaron on their side. And Abigail asks Harrow to see if she can't get Coronabeth's help. Dulcie asks, is this how it happens, Lady Pent? And Abigail says, no. And Dulcie says goodbye to Palamides and Camilla, and Harrowhark feels a dislocated longing, a bizarre yearning. And she's kind of disturbed by all of this, and so she heads out, holding a piece of flimsy in her hands. It's like all rolled up into like a little
thing
pill.
that she picked up that had been found in Palamides' pocket.
I think
Yeah.
so.
Yeah. And she unrolls it, and it says, him I'll kill quick because she asked me to, and because that much he honestly deserved, but you two mummified wizard shits I will burn and burn and burn and burn until there is no trace of you left in the shadow of my long-lost natal son. And Ortis describes the 90s S. He also drops the bomb that he knows his father killed himself at Harrow's parents' request, and that's an intense moment. Because she's like, what? You knew this whole time? And he's like, you're not the only one who can do 2 + 2 = 4. And he like looks at her like kind of like disgusted, like
Contempt.
the fuck? Like, what do you think of me actually?
Yeah. It's deeply tragic too. I mean, I think the relationship between Ortis and Harrow is not anywhere near as intimate as the relationship we saw between Harrow and Gideon, but it is this thing where they have known each other forever and they theoretically know a lot about one another and know nothing about one another internally.
Yeah. And what breaks this intense moment is a wind blows rain through an open window along with a bunch of syringes with rusted needles.
Fuck.
And Ortis just looks down and he's like, did you want to know if I can see him too?
That's very good. So, Hannah, you said you've been itching for us to like do something, say something about these chapters. And
yeah.
I mean, fundamentally, there's so little for us to know what to talk about because as far as we know, this isn't how it happens. So what is true? What is relevant? Why are we doing this? What is there to talk about? Like, I feel like we're like observers who have no power to do anything, even if we made a prediction out of all this. Like, I don't know what to do with it.
Brooke, thank you. That is all I wanted to hear. I'm so serious. This is like exactly my experience reading these books the first time was what you described at the beginning, where I was just getting more and more frustrated. I was like, what the actual fuck? You established what you needed to establish already, which is, this weird Ortis alternative memory history idea of Canaan House. What the fuck are these all caps letters that make no sense and are super intense?
What's the sleeper as an alternate enemy? Like, why can't it still be Kitharay with her bone monster?
So it literally was this thing where like I read it and initially I was like, oh, like I feel like I kind of understand what's going on. And then it kept happening and I kept getting more and more frustrated. So I really just wanted to hear frustration.
We now
from
have
you.
we have an entirely different set of dead bodies. Like we only had like 3 or 5 people who walked out of Canaan House alive. And like Judith and Camilla Hecht are suddenly now dead in this alternate universe. And she's got a letter that says, in case, like, you run into Camilla Hecht. Like, how is that going to square?
I thank you. I really just wanted to know that you also were thinking about these things, because I was like, this is a huge portion of the book we haven't touched, but you're right.
It's really weird.
Literally, there's not enough information to grasp onto it.
I suppose it's like one of these things where, like, there's enough inconsistencies that maybe it's almost like some Trojan horse to wake her up or something, maybe? Like, where... like at some point it all like implodes and like things change but it doesn't make sense.
Yeah. And then you get this like
listeners to know that while we're having this debate and Brooke is going on, John is sitting back just watching Hannah
does that
and
all the
my
time.
face.
fucking cheater, first of all. How dare you?
That's all he's doing. He's being like, yes, Brooke, keep talking.
Well, also, you know what he's also doing? Did you see the smirk?
He's writing down
there.
notes. He's writing down predictions. He's like, what are they lying to us about? He's turned this into a psychological game, which it is, but it's not,
No, I love that. This is, you know what? John, play. You go.
I've taken too many L's in the first part of this podcast. We're taking every
competitive sport.
Actually, the fucking crazier thing is like, even if this is a competitive sport, I think it's so funny that you guys think of it as taking L's because, like, again, we got so much feedback from listeners in the last book where they were like, holy shit, they are so smart. They are getting so many things that they should not have been able to get. So I think you should be proud of how close you got.
John does turn this into a competitive sport. I'm not a competitive person, but I feel the need to at least try about as hard as he does.
But you're not a competitive person.
No,
yeah,
I don't mind if I lose.
Yeah, I'm just going to take a moment to adjust my pulmonary drain and put some bodies in the morgue. And then it'll be time for some game. A game. Something. Interstitial. What fitting epitaph for your fragile bones? Okay, so this week we managed to finish up our little book of notes on our friends. Isn't that nice? The Saint of Patience has none. The Saint of Joy extracts it out of every situation. And the Saint of Duty is, I don't know. I still don't know. So this all feels incomplete without saint names for Ianthe and Harrow, which is why this week we're playing Call Me By Your Cavalier's name. In this game, we are going to give saint names to a bunch of lictors that could have been but never were. So keeping in mind that the saint name is really meant to describe the cavalier. Starting with John. Our John. What is a good saint name for Harrow Hark the First, assuming that Ordis is her cavalier?
Not sap. Not. I'm not trying to think of a word that's like adjacent to sappy, but like not like in like an emotional, like just in like a like
overwrought emotion.
Yeah. The saint of like teenage angst. I don't know.
Honestly, I feel like that works with Ordis or Gideon as the cavalier.
I guess maybe or no. Yeah, the saint of man-child angst. Let's go with that.
Man-child angst.
Well, so Brooke, you had Harrow if Gideon was her cavalier. So what is her saint lane in that case?
I like mine for what it means, but I don't like how it sounds. So I'm up for workshopping this. But I called her the Saint of Implied Winks.
I love that.
And I really don't like how it sounds, because the Saint of Winks just feels really weird.
I kind of dig it. I feel like it is always like laughing a little bit behind the scenes, like, that's what she said.
John, what did you think? Jokes.
I was like, saint of like sarcasm. There's also like, I was looking at as like, you know, going through my like Tamsin thesaurus of words, trying to find something that was a little bit snappier. And one of them like came up was acerbity, or I don't even know if I'm pronouncing this right.
Acerbic.
Yes, sharpness or directness in speech. So the saint of absurd, a saint, that also just a tongue twister, which I think Gideon would think is hilarious when people mispronounce it. But like the saint of acerbity, Jesus, that is hard to say.
I personally cannot say Arnold Palmer. It's very hard.
It sounded right.
Did you hear how much effort I put into it?
Okay, just try and say it without effort. I want to hear this.
Arnold Palmer.
The beverage tycoon?
You know he's a golfer first, right?
Yes.
Yeah, the beverage has has the golfer.
Okay, oh my God.
Okay, so Hannah, what about Ianthe? What should Ianthe's saint name be?
Okay, so the first thing I thought of was the Saint of Hair, which I do think describes Babs well, but I actually like better as a saint name, the Saint of Finesse, because I feel like Babs is all about these like very delicate lines, everything being perfect and in its right place.
Wouldn't that just make it like vanity?
The Saint of Vanity.
Actually, the Saint of Vanity works for both Babs and also Ianthe. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. I went with, like, of course, if Corona Beth had ended up being her cavalier, that her saint name would have been the Saint of Gains, or the Saint of Endowment.
The Saint of Endowment.
So, anyway, that's only if Gideon's giving the names. Anyway, what about Judith with Marta as her cav?
I feel like they would be I think they would love to be the saint of duty. Like, I feel like they would be like super happy if they got that, but now it's taken. And I feel like it's like retiring a number. When a lictor gets a title, it's like retiring that number. You can't have that anymore. So like this,
actually, I really like that.
The saint of duty's been taken. So like probably like the saint of valor, or like the saint of like something similar, where it's just like something related to the cohort.
It's a lot nicer than the saint of tryhards.
The Saint of Rule.
Yeah. The saint of standard operating procedure.
The saint of SOPs.
Yes, the saint of SOP. Yeah.
Oh man,
that is solid. That's really solid.
That's rough. About Isaac and Jean Marie.
I gave them the saint of Hot Topic.
Beautiful.
Hot Topic's still around, right?
I don't know.
I think so.
We have like
malls are barely around.
I'm sure. So yeah.
What about Abigail and Magnus?
Okay, let's see what I put here. I don't remember. It was hours ago. I put the Saint of Laughter, which I really like. Initially, I wanted it to be the Saint of Dad Jokes, but I feel like Magnus invites you in. Magnus is all about laughter for everyone. Yep.
You could also do the Saint of Magnanimity.
Yes, I like that too. That works really well for like Magnus. That's lovely.
Mirth.
Yeah.
I gave for Palamides and Camilla, I gave him the saint name, the Saint of Competence.
I love that. I would do quiet competence because it's like it doesn't brag. It's just
unassuming.
Happens to be true. Yeah, that's beautiful.
That's good. What about Dulcinea / Protesilaus, but the version that we understand them from Gideon the Ninth?
The Saint of Lemons.
That's all I can think of too.
Lemon
Saint of
squeezed
meat.
into a sack.
The Saint of Beef.
The Saint of Beef.
Okay, again, same pairing, but the version that we understand them now from Harrow the Ninth.
Oh, I had a hard time with this one. The best I came up with was the Saint of Patrons, just because that feels like the role he's serving, but I don't.
Interesting.
I think there's something else to reach there. The fact that he's like bronzed and golden and like very self-assured feels like there's some Greek god to turn to as a model here, but I'm not good at I'm not familiar enough with it.
He's he's like super brave. He's got his poetry. He's very protective of Dulcinea, right? Like
he's very self-assured in his like role as her cavalier. I went with patron for that reason, and it works, I think, but it's not all that exciting. There's probably something better there.
Well, what about Silas and Column?
I did the Saint of Honor because I really feel like that's what Column is at his core. But you also could do the Saint of Obedience.
No, I like the Saint of Honor because then it's very much in the vein of like Mercy being the Saint of Joy.
Yeah,
where it does not at all describe the actual person.
Yes.
Only
I
their
keep
calves.
forgetting about that. That like
There's
what you're
some
actually
irony.
seeing is Silas as the Saint of Honor, and you're like, what?
Yeah. Okay. What about some non like Lock Tomb universe duos if they were to go through this? So Turk and JD, but you have to choose which one's
Oh my
the
God!
Cav and which one's the Necro.
Oh
This-
my god, wait, who's the
I'm going to throw this out there.
Cav?
Turk is 100% the Cav. Like the entire the entire joke about the series is that surgeons are idiots and are just like basically like cutting people and like not
And when
understanding
they
the
give each
medicine.
other piggyback rides, I think JD's usually on the back.
Yeah. So yeah,
Agreed.
JD is the necro. Turk is definitely the Cav, and I think the Saint of Shenanigans. I feel like there's so many bits in there that they're doing. Like Saint
That's
of Shenanigans.
Saint of Shenanigans is golden, John. That is
That's such
well
a cool
done, sir.
name.
Well done.
Okay, well, for you, Brooke, Harry
Yeah.
Potter and Ron Weasley.
Hell yeah. I think that Harry Potter is the cavalier is the cavalier in this duo. Which is weird
Really?
because I know that the necromancer who becomes a lictor is the main character, but I just can't see Ron Weasley as being a useful or effective cavalier. And I think that Harry fits the profile all right. So I'm sticking with Harry Potter as the Cav, and therefore the saint name would be the Saint of Luck.
Ooh, that's
is
fun.
Good.
I really like that a
Especially
lot.
since, again, it goes with this, like, that really doesn't describe the
Ron.
necro at all. Ron is not lucky. Okay, what about Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and Vin Diesel?
So this is a little bit of a complicated one because A, they hate each other famously.
Wait, really? In real life?
And yes. B, the other thing is that they actually both had in their original contract famously that they couldn't lose a fight. And so it became this like difficult thing to, anyway, my point is neither of them would ever be able to lose or be murdered by the other. So they never reach lictordom. So they get to just be demi-saints of their own thing. And so Vin Diesel is obviously the demi-saint of family, and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is the demi-saint of being a chill dude.
This is like lore I had. We need to watch Fast and Furious. Okay, anyway.
So even
let's
you can't
just
commit
watch
to one of them
Furious 7.
winning.
Oh, that would be, I mean, in violation of some sort of contract law, and I already am terrified of lawyers.
I think Universal comes after you if you say either would win in a fight.
Okay.
So safe.
Well, between Sherlock Holmes and John Watson, I mean, there's no problem with saying that Sherlock is obviously the necro in this. And Hannah's already dying. I gave him the saint name of Confusion.
Poor
so
Sean.
fucking cold, but it's just on
Watson
point.
is always confused.
He doesn't even know that he's like the joke sad sidekick.
I know. And again, it goes with like the Saint of Joy kind of thing where it's ironic. out of curiosity, what would your necros saint name be if you were the Cav, Brooke?
I think I would generate the Saint of Caution. Just tragic, and I was just giving Hannah.
I wish.
Shit for not being willing to commit to Dwayne or Vin Diesel.
I love it.
Winning.
That's amazing. Anyway. What about you, John?
I think it'd be the Saint of Vexing, or Vex if we need to shorten it.
Recently,
Vexation?
John keeps doing this thing where we have like the outline for the show, and we like go through, certain roles are assigned for certain snippets, and John manages to hold off just long enough that all of us are like ready to pounce and be like, John, it's your cue. He's been managing to hold off just long enough that all of us start to be like, do we? And then he goes and jumps in finally at the last second. It's driving me nuts. You are vexing me.
Perfect.
Is that what you intended?
His whole goal in life is
Yeah.
to vex his wife. That's like his main, that's who he
Raison
is.
d'etre.
And what a beautiful thing that his wife, the necromancer, would then forever get to hold the title of his own vexations of her.
And she
I
would
think
be
it's
so
great.
pissed about that. She
So
would be
pissed.
so pissed.
Yeah. Goal achieved.
Perfect. Okay, Hannah, how about you?
Saint of Revenge by Compassion was what I put. I feel like my main, who I am recently, is a person who is bullying people into being their best selves. So that's who I am. But I think my best self is the Saint of Connection,
I agree.
where I just know absolutely everyone.
I agree.
So I'm
That's
going
wonderful.
with Saint of Connection.
Yeah. I think that my saint name is the Saint of Chaos, and if my necro were my husband, it would be one of those where it wasn't necessarily ironic. So
Like it works both ways.
it works both ways. That's what she said. It's always nice to think about how you'll be remembered after your death, so I think we all know that the four of us will mostly be remembered for our rampant speculation. Act 4. God, who did you bury? Brooke and John may be children, but their conspiracy theories are as good as any 10,000-year-old lictor. So Brooke and John, what the fuck is happening?
Hey, we know who the body is.
Who's the body?
It's Annabel Lee. A.L. John's former bodyguard turned monster who he was apparently in love with. I have no idea what any of this means. Do you, John?
Yeah, I was like,
Nope.
okay, so what does that mean?
Yeah, we have absolutely no. It's like 1,000 other things in this book where it's just like, oh, that'll probably be important later.
She answered the question and opened the door to a million new ones.
Yes,
We weren't asking the right question after all.
this wasn't helpful at all. Yeah.
So, new clues, I guess. Not sure what to do with them yet. Bodyguard turned monster. In the tomb. The tomb is named after Anastasia, but that is not Anastasia, who we were...
Yeah, we were definitely
on that
wrong on
train.
that, I think.
I mean,
Yeah.
reasonably. Not too mad about that. Speaking of Anastasia, the reason she wasn't a saint, it seems, is because she misapprehended the lictor process. Although, by Jod's description, then it doesn't feel like she was really even a lictor, though, but she's called that in the dramatis persona, so that's weird.
She is it is distinct in the dramatis personae though, right?
She's a lictor,
She's
but not a
still-
saint.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what it is. I knew it was something.
So I don't know. I guess either there's something there that we don't understand, that we don't know, or we're misunderstanding the distinction. So
Point of order, it never calls them lictors. It's just the dramatis personae. And everybody else is a lictor.
oh, really?
So it doesn't say lictors. It just says, it starts off with the Emperor of the Nine Houses and then crossed out A.L., his guardian. And then it
that's
keeps
correct.
going where it's a name in bold and name crossed out. And then
And then the
underneath, if
saint
they
of-
are a lictor, it says the saint name.
Wait,
And
it
so
does
when you
say
get to
elector, right?
Anastasia- No,
Oh.
it never says lictor.
Oh, okay.
It just says saint
Never
name.
mind. Distinction not needed. Okay.
Hmm.
Anastasia, not a lictor, not a saint. She misapprehended the process. There's some interesting thing he says about her seeing pathways in it that simply didn't exist. I wonder if this is almost like what we saw Palamides doing, of like there's an inherent flaw here. There's got to be something else, kind of thing. I wonder if she was on that track. And it's interesting that it's the eightfold word, which would suggest there never should be 9, of which she was.
Wait, isn't that just the 8 steps in the lictor process? Am I crazy?
Yeah.
That's what I was going to say. Is this the first time that we hear it called the eightfold word?
Yes.
I think so.
Okay.
What happened to Samael? Probably he died, right? Probably. But like, there's this, kind of glossed over description of cleaning up. And that feels...
Well, assuming she misapprehended the lictor process, but the first step in the process, I'm assuming she didn't screw up at step 1. The step 1 is kill the person, right? So...
Right. So probably dead, but maybe the spirit did something wild.
Yeah.
She didn't die. She was still alive after. So anyway, something happened there. We've got some new and fresh experiences with Ortis the First in this chapter. That is obviously exciting. But things to pick out. Yeah, he's redheaded. This is something we already knew. So Ortis / Gideon, very much a second time described as redheaded, just like Gideon, Nav. He's got a duty to keep the Emperor safe above his own wishes. I don't know if... So again, this is not... That was his cat's name. We've already established this.
Literally just laughing at the word duty.
Duty. All right, 3-year-old Hannah, who's 9 now? What did Ortis do 19 years ago, which was approximately the time of Gideon's conception, I think, if math serves me correctly, that got him in trouble? And why does he want the sword?
I'm still on the train that, like, it's... Gideon's conception, they try to implant an egg that was fertilized by the Emperor into somebody, and Ortis got sent after them. I think like
Why is she redheaded? Oh, you still think it's Pyrrha, who was
I don't
famously
know. Like,
redhead in mythology.
The only reason I still think it's John's kid is that like the getting into the tomb. Harrow was able to get into the tomb because of the fingernail stuff.
That's right, exactly. That's what you're sticking with. Anastasia made the tomb, so maybe it just needs to be a descendant. Harrow is
I thought that, but there's a very distinct thing that's just like it would only open for like the Emperor Divine or something.
Okay. Anyway, so don't know what's going on there. You were moving on. The sleeper, what the fuck?
We don't know. Yeah, like that's just like such a random. Like there's no it's just a person with a gun and sitting on top of the sword.
Just in a tomb in the middle of the facility. Definitely wasn't there before. It's a person. I guess.
Yeah.
I guess it's hard to know when they're inside of a hazmat suit.
Well, assuming that like
limbs.
it's not like a purely alternative like universe / or like it's kind of related, like there's some overlap. Like I'm wondering now if the sleeper is in Kitharea's body because it touched the sword and the sword went into Kithareia. I'm assuming the sword in the sleeper's coffin is the 2-handed sword that Harrow has.
Yeah. Weird idea. I like the idea. So there's this through line of Kithareia having been killed by the sword is taking on all these new forms after her death because of apopneumatic shock.
Yeah, because was that
right?
Weird because
Did I use it right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody's nodding. This isn't a podcast, an audio medium.
Oh, good call. Audio medium. Yes, Brooke. Great job.
Thank you.
It just the sleeper is such just a weird character because it's Kithareia kind of had a plan as like the villain of the first book, but the sleeper is just like doing like kind of like over the top like executions and then like basically like passionate murder. It's like we're shooting Judith several times more than necessary. We're like executing the 6th house. I don't know.
And no defensive wounds, which Abigail Pent picked up on, and to me that's the biggest clue there about. She says, I think I know where the danger lies, and all good research starts with a completely unsupported hypothesis or something like that. And I was like, yeah, that's right.
I got nothing. I honestly I feel like I've got like so many. All right, to put this in like the cooking analogy, I feel like I have so many ingredients and I have no idea what people want to eat. Is basically kind of like where I'm at. And like that's kind of where I'm at the book. It's just like we have so much information. Like I don't know where we're going because like the more you think about it, like the alternative history / like meanwhile Canaan House stuff makes no damn sense in any context we've been given besides like it being a construct in Harrow's head. We don't know anything about the sleeper. It just seems like a weird inclusion. We've gotten so much information. I feel like I know nothing more than when I started this book, minus a few things. that like is leading me towards an end conclusion. I just have a ton of information and not I don't know what to do with it.
Oh, John, you sound like me finally. Last book you were like, I know how this strings together. I'm jumping to the conclusion. It makes perfect sense. And I was like, okay. Here, we are together in this.
I got nothing. Yeah. We'll see.
Last weird thing that, I don't know, just want to talk about. Why is the rain disgusting at Canaan House in this alternative reality? Why is it it's a little bit described as if it's river water, or it sounds like the river water at points. But then somehow there are needles falling out of the sky. Rusty old needles. What the fuck?
I have no idea.
Okay. Well, we're not satisfied, but here we are.
Yeah.
I guess we'll see if any of that happens next time when John and Brooke stay up all night for 5 days to read through Harrow the Ninth, chapters 23 through 26.
And if you, dear listener, are like Brooke and me, reading along for the first time, make sure you find our reading calendar on our website, frontline5th.podbean.com, or follow us on Instagram or TikTok. And to support us, you can buy merch or join our Patreon, all of which are linked in the show notes. If you like this podcast, please share it with your friends and give us a 5-star rating anywhere you can. And if you didn't like it, feel free to lie. Now head off to sleep, my baby necros. Mommy and Daddy have some deep spoilers to discuss.
Get in, losers. We're going speculating.
Act 5. I do things face to face.
Warning. This portion of the podcast is 98% spoilers and like 2% snickering.
Seriously, we will spoil anything and everything in the series up through Nona the Ninth. That's not what you want. Turn back now.
Well, hello, Marie.
Hello. My child is making me crazy. Just a sec.
Yeah, no worries.
I wish that my microphone would pick up all the way from over there of It's Mother's Day, go away. To my child. That's the whole point of Mother's Day, right? So everybody leaves you the fuck alone.
Oh, God, that's fucking incredible. This is like... It's so horrible because, like, obviously, you know, when it's like big good days, people want to celebrate you. And the thing that, like, the biggest gift anyone could give me is 48 hours where I am at an unknown hotel with no cell phone and no one knows where I am. This is like my dream. I fucking passionately dream about 48 hours of no contact.
That's called burnout. Anyway, what do we want to talk about first?
Well, so I am grateful to them for kind of like talking a little bit more about this second timeline, which we know is in the bubble. And it's an interesting thing because, again, when I was reading through it the first time, I really had the same exact experience as Brooke. And
even times 5,000,001, I was like, why do we care about all of the details? Why is this going on so long? Is it just for ambiance? And then you're like, no, there's so many illusions. Like, I just skipped ahead trying to find things. And it's like, Harrow wakes up on her third day of consciousness without Gideon. But when Abigail is like, oh, I'm trying to calculate, like, how long it's been. It's 9 months.
Yep.
Like, there's so many illusions of, like, other things going on here where I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah.
It's completely fascinating. And I think it actually, like, one, the existence of the bubbles is actually an enormous plot point. That's like a huge, it's really important to Palamedes and his pathway. So, like, the bubbles themselves are really interesting. And I think we talked last time about how we don't even know, like, the full extent to which bubbling has been used or could be used in order to create new realities for people and new memories for people, not to mention keep people alive. So, I mean, I think it is important. But the other thing is, reading it again, it seems obvious now. So, like, for example, Harrow and Gideon almost never encounter Abigail throughout the entirety of Gideon the Ninth. She's basically an NPC. And here, she's a serious character. Similarly, this Dulcinea, so dramatically different from the Kithorea Dulcinea that we meet last time. And the thing is, that you cannot explain. You cannot explain that by Harrow making up memories to fill space, because she would have used what she already knew. This thing of making up totally a new kind of terror using the gun, and this thing of characters that are fully fleshed out characters that we did not meet cannot be explained simply by Harrow trying to redo what she had at Canaan House.
This also tickles something in my brain, too, where I think that this is just like a huge meta thing of recognizing that one of the ways that Tamsin is a writer and like where so much of her writing was before she starts being published is fan fiction.
Yes.
And so it's like, this is a new fan fiction version of Gideon the Ninth, where you get to interact with characters that you never got to interact with. You have this alternate reality where you're like, what if Magnus and Abigail didn't die immediately and we actually got to hang out with them and we actually got to know Abigail? What if we actually got to know any of these other characters? And then she explicitly leans into it with all of her ridiculous AU, like alternate universes within the alternate universe.
Once we actually get the barista and once we actually get the Emperor's daughter marrying off party, that's so fucking funny. I think this is dead on, and it is kind of something that you always wish for. It's almost like fun to get to have the experience of Canaan House again. It would be almost fun to do it over and over in different ways. And this is, I'm really sure I've told you about this before. The second time
around, though. The first time around, you're mad.
Yeah. This is true. It's very frustrating. At some point deep into our Patreon life goals, I will force us to do a double feature of Happy Death Day and Happy Death Day 2, which are two movies that I absolutely adore. But in the second one, it really is clear they were like, this would just be fun to make again. So they put it basically in an alternate reality so that they can do it again, but with a different bad guy they have to figure out. And it works. It's just fucking fun. Ugh.
I love that. I also, because I'm always counting, can we start out with the references to...
Please. Oh, yeah, like Gideon sneaking in the narration.
Yeah, so I also started counting. There's only one mention of the pommel before you start getting into the last 3 chapters from last week and the 3 chapters from this week. And then it goes from 1 reference to 5 references.
Interesting.
So there's
like maybe
so
Gideon's presence is actually ramping up inside of Harrow.
And so these are things that I've pulled out of being like, I think that this is Gideon. So the first sentence is when she's getting stabbed by the Saint of Duty. And she pauses to look at him, and it says, "This is a fool's move. Why didn't you run? You chose to watch as though you could learn anything." And I think that's Harrow blaming herself and being like, "You fucking idiot." And the next sentence is, "A less critical party might have pointed out that you'd had a surprise gift of 12 inches of steel through the chest and made your pecs spring the blade back out with your own rib cage."
This is totally true. Also, yeah, I mean, Harrow would never say sproing, but I also love the 2 different parties watching herself, and one of them,
it's her watching herself and being love. "You fucking idiot," and Gideon being like, "Also, calm down." And then the next one is, it says, he used the butt of his sword. It would be lying to say you now regularly called it the pommel. And then after you have this as one of our headers or whatever, "What fitting epitaph for your fragile bones?" And the next sentence is, "Perhaps here lies the world's most insufferable witch."
Yup, that is deep Gideon. No melange there. That's pure.
That's just Gideon. Let's see. There's another reference to the pommel in chapter 22. It says, "Your hands cupping the bottom of the hilt. Still the pommel." And then I think that's all I've got for this is deep Gideon.
I love that. This is so fun. I also like the idea of it ramping up more. If you graphed it out by chapter, you would watch Gideon seeping through more and more until she actually comes all the way through.
I also find it interesting, just in the bubble, the way that the bubble is talked about with some of these things. It's Harrow's having a confusion of trying to be do I remember seeing the Tridentarii? How would I even find them? And Abigail's can you find them? This is one where I'm fuck you, Tamsin, where Ordis says, "The sleeper who sleepeth not." Perhaps a better name would have been the Waker.
The Waker.
Hansen.
And you're like, wake on the nose, on the nose.
Right? And then you have Abigail. I think this is also why she was like, hey, like, because she doesn't know who died and who didn't. And I think she's trying to figure out, like, what is going on. And I think, like, this is a chapter where Abigail's like, oh, the weird bodies that are, like, mutilated and you can't tell what they are, and the things that act weird are the ones that aren't actual souls. And she says later on, like, she's looking at the body that was apparently Palamity Sextus examining, and she says, no defense wounds, Pent murmured, just like Judith. I wonder. So she's, like, starting to figure out, like, why they're there, or why certain people are there, and why some of them act like NPCs, because some of them are, because there's not an actual soul to come in. And I think that's partly why she asks Harrow to find the twins.
Yeah, and the way she asks it is interesting, too. She's like, can you find Corona? Oh, and also Ianthe, obviously. So it makes me wonder if she knows something about what happened with Ianthe.
Right.
Although I don't know that that's true. It's just a weird way that she asks it.
Or maybe she's going off of, who knows? But she asks it in a weird way. Yeah, this is a tough one. What
the fuck is up with Gideon Giddy 1 wanting the sword? I don't know. It's a weird one-off. I didn't notice it ever before, and this time reading through, I was like, wait a second. Like, can he feel Wake in there? That's clearly somehow connects to Wake in Kithoria's body. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Gross.
I also, speaking of wink, wink, nudge, nudge, I started, like, cracking myself up while they were speculating about the dumbest thing, which is they reasonably were pointing out that Ordis the First likes to do things face to face. That's what got him into trouble around the time of Gideon's conception. And it's me just, like, cracking up because I like the idea that he just really hates to do doggy style. He's only in if you're if you're face to face. That's anyway. All right, I'm
staring
done now.
Intensely into his eyes. No, he seems like just such a weird dude.
Bad.
It's like, who would ever want to, like, Pyrrha? Yes, Pyrrha in Giddy One's body. Sure.
I like weirdly
Giddy
kind of
One in his own body. No, he's
I
just
sort
too
of think
intense.
he's hot.
No, he creeps me out. I'm like, I don't need this level of seriousness.
I understand entirely. This makes sense. So the other thing with Giddy One is the Emperor says he made a pact with an authority that Jod has no power to gainsay, that he would protect Jod from all dangers. And we know that Jod is the one that put Giddy One up to this, up to killing Harrow. And so I just don't understand. I don't understand that.
I think he's a lying asshole. But
that'll
also,
do it, actually.
I think that it is possibly true because everybody calls him like teacher's attack dog and like, oh, like he just wants you dead, like good luck, like too bad for you. And I think it is true that I think that it's possible that just the same way that many of the lictors are doing like behind the scenes treatises or like working with BOE, I think it's also possible that each of the lictors made a pact with Alecto.
Interesting. I like that a lot, actually. I like that a lot. And we know how loyal the original Gideon pre-resurrection was to Jod. Like he really was basically like Jod's best friend and closest,
or it could
reliable.
Be something where because Pyrrha and Anastasia seemed to be so close that it's actually the two of them, because we know that. Oh yeah, no, I love this.
Tell me.
So the way that my brain is going, this is like on the fly, is that Pyrrha in Nona the Ninth makes allusions to helping Anastasia set up the Ninth House or being on the Ninth House at some point. She says she painted a nursery or saw a nursery there, or I think she says she helped paint a nursery.
Yes. Yeah, I remember that.
And so I think that what it's alluding to is before everything goes down, she is tight with Anastasia. And what we know is that Gideon and Pyrrha did, like, something weird happened and she went underground, quote unquote. Mm-hmm. We know that Anastasia and Samael tried to do it differently. And I think we've had discussions in our spoiler about being like, who tried first?
Right.
Did Anastasia and Samael try first? And then Samael died and Anastasia doesn't become a lictor.
Yeah.
And then Pyrrha and Giddy One like tried to do it another way, or Gideon like tries to do it the normal way, but Pyrrha has enough know-how to go underground from him.
Yeah.
In which case, later on, we know that Anastasia makes, or it feels pretty certain that Anastasia makes a pact with Alecto.
Yeah.
And so I think that it could be just as well that Pyrrha, as Giddy One, makes a pact with Alecto, but Giddy One is like, oh, whoops, I guess I made a pact with Alecto, the same way as he did with Wake.
Yeah. That's this is the danger of having two people in one body, you know? You got to deal with the fallout. Can I just like briefly, you told me at one point that like in the fandom, there's assumptions that Samael could have been Anastasia's son.
Mm-hmm.
But either way, we know that Anastasia has children. One, you mentioned this nursery, but also like the whole thing is it has to be a direct lineage from Anastasia to Harrow.
And we get a confirmation at the end of Nona that Harrow is Anastasia's descendant.
Right. So at that point, who is the sperm donor there?
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder who else, sires the ninth. It even could be Gideon. It could even be Pyrrha in Gideon's body who,
Or if Samael, I think people might be taking it too far with the nursery and then being like, oh, Samael has to be her son then, rather than recognizing that the nursery is the clue that there is the line of tomb keepers established before maybe even Anastasia tries to...
Well, it could be before or after. I think either one of those works.
Way.
But it definitely, the timeline does change things because Samael could be the father or it could be,
There's another quote early in this book where it says it would have mingled the Cav and Necro lines beyond...
beyond like being
beyond salvation or whatever.
Yeah.
In which case, it might have been that Anastasia and Samael were everybody else. Not everybody else, but like many of the pairs romantically linked.
All right. Something to think about. I have two more things I want to talk about. One is, Brooke brought this up at the end, but like Canaan House starts getting weird, right? We know there's no good weather in Harrow's brain. Fine, the rain. We know that there's kind of gross rain, blood and organs, ultimately. That's very River. What the fuck with the syringes? I feel
IVF.
like that is a whole other IVF. Oh my God. So this is something that Wake is bringing along. Have we had this conversation before? I think we've had this conversation before.
Might have
and
had
I had
this conversation.
the same reaction. All right. Well, we'll let that go.
Yeah,
and then,
no, I think we don't have to let it go. I think that that's what it is. It's like the weather actually isn't Harrow. The weather is Wake, because then it starts getting weird and like it starts talking about like the way that the organs and blood and everything is. It's like amniotic fluid. It's like fallopian tubes. It's like syringes and vials and things that you would need for IVF.
Very, 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 very interesting. All right. We'll have to come back to that. I just wanted to bring up a couple of things that are interesting within the Annabel Lee poem.
Yeah.
So actually, Brooke brought up one. The sea is a key character in the Annabel Lee poem.
Yep.
And I really, really think that there's something fundamental about the sea, about salt water, that allows transit or communication or safety, or there's something really fucking important about salt water that we don't understand yet. So I thought that was interesting. The other thing is this dichotomy between the way Jod feels about the earth. So this maiden, she lived with no other thought than to love and be loved by me. It is theoretically a reciprocal love, but it's written pretty clearly as like the Annabel Lee character is effectively subservient. Her only goal in life is to love the writer of the poem and not the other way around. The writer loves her, but that's not his only gig.
Yeah, but that is her only purpose.
Yeah. I also really like this idea that, that out of some sort of jealousy, these angels of heaven, the winged seraphs of heaven, coveted her and me. And Jod really does have this attitude.
Her away from me to shut her up in a sepulchre in the kingdom by the sea.
Exactly. Like, they were jealous. They took her away from me and shut her up in a tomb. And I also just really, there's something about Jod hates people who are trying to take stuff from him. He has a weird obsessive hatred of the billionaires. He has a weird obsessive hatred. The way he describes Blood of Eden, Eden is something that they left behind. You have no more claim over something once you leave it behind. Like, I don't know. It just actually makes a lot of sense to me. And these allusions to angels and devils are particularly interesting to me. Neither the angels in heaven above nor the demons down under the sea. Demons under the sea, people. Which also takes me both into the river, but also beyond the stoma, potentially, right? Which is, the whole thing is just like a really, really interesting thing if you wanted to dissect it in terms of the locked tomb.
Also, there's a little bit of a meta thing going on here where comparing Jod to Edgar Allan Poe in the way that they talk about women.
Oh, yeah.
And the possessiveness and the fact that, like, basically, Edgar Allan Poe's is all about, like, dead women. Like, they're sexy when they're dead. They're lovely when they're dead.
And also when they're young, by the way. When they are young and naive. And that was both in his real life, but also in his writing. Even here, I was a child and she was a child.
Young and naive, and I have power over them. And also, it's sexier if they're dead.
Ugh.
Gross.
Ick and or ew.
It's getting to the point where I'm like, I don't remember if that's something that just you say or if that's a quote from a book.
I don't know either.
I think it's just you. Yeah, so Act 6. Roman numerals, man. See you next time, my little nunlets. It looks like we're out of good morsels. Good spoiler morsel. It looks like we're good. Well, it looks like we're out of good spoiler morsels to nibble on. How come I can't fucking say that? I'm leaving this entire thing in. Well, it looks like we're out of good spoiler morsels to nibble on. But don't worry, because next week we make soup.
I'm so excited.
In Harrow the Ninth, chapters 23 through 26. I'm so excited, too, because then that means that we can be like, hey, look, go look at the beginning of Gideon. Yeah. As soon as they text us, can we be like, hey, look at this page. We need to have it ready to go.
Yes, 100% we should.
Okay. If you want to follow along with us, our reading calendar is available on our website at frontlinefifth.podbean.com, and you can follow us on Instagram and TikTok, which are linked in the show notes. If you enjoyed this podcast, please tell your friends and give us a 5-star rating anywhere you can. And of course, if you didn't enjoy the podcast, too bad, lie. We have a Patreon, which you can join for access to bonus content every month. You can become a patron, and we do love our patrons, at patreon.com/frontlinefifth, and you can check out our merch at our Redbubble store, linked in the show notes. Finally, I'm not editing any of this. I'm leaving it as it is.
Nor should you.
Finally, if you have any fun theories you'd like to share with us, feel free to email us at frontlinefifth@gmail.com. Everything is Frontline Fifth. Nobody else cares. It's just us, okay? With that, I'll just remind you to not unlock any tombs or enter any doors without permission because you know ghosts. Bye.
Frontline Fifth is a Locked Tomb podcast conceived by Maria Adamako and starring Maria Adamako, Hannah Grunwald, Brooke Anderson, and John Ryan. Our cover art was designed and created by Maria Adamako, who also edited this episode. Our fabulous music was composed and recorded by Blake Anderson. Sonia Grunwald designs our killer merch. Hot. Gorgeous. The Locked Tomb series is a completely dope-ass book series by Tamsin Mira, who does not know we exist and is in no way affiliated with this podcast yet.